Hi, welcome. So this is going to be a video about my design process going into designing Armitage tasks. So to start this idea, I basically just threw everything onto a note app, just made a list of all the different features that I was hoping that I wanted to have that I thought would be useful. uh, Try to make a list of the different metrics that each of these tasks would probably require and what kind of like information I would want from the user and what would be important. Um, and then I jumped into the actual design, trying to get ideas of what would be on the screens. I'm going to go through that whole process here. This is time lapse speed at like 64 times, so it's pretty quick. I'm going to be pausing throughout it to talk through some of my thought process. So let's get into it. All right, so you can see here I've got my planner thoughts, different ideas about yeah, what would these features be? What would just like anything that would be useful? What came to mind? I just threw it down onto this note app as kind of a reference for what I wanted the idea for maybe what the end result would look like. So referencing this, I then started to begin to lay out kind of what some thoughts are. So I'm starting here with aspects of life. This is from a book I had to read in college. I thought it was useful, a way of kind of like dividing your life into different important aspects and then how you can kind of like check in with the health of each of those aspects. So that was a kind of an idea I was toying with about how the goals would then be associated with these aspects. So then on like a meta level, you could look at a dashboard, excuse me, and you could see how you're kind of doing in each of these different aspects and kind of like check in on the health of them. How much are you paying attention to them? How much are you neglecting them? And kind of being able to kind of get an over level view if you're kind of like stuck in the weeds, like how I can normally get. Um, that's the book there. So start laying out some ideas for some of the goals that I have, trying to just lay out what some of the content that I would probably want in the app. So I try to fill it with like information that was actually relevant to me, so I could kind of really empathize with the user being me, but anyone else on how they would be using this application. Let's see. So I started doing that. I apparently forgot to record the beginning stages here. So let me just. All right. So I missed recording the beginning thing, but anyway. So what I started with was this idea of the different modes that you would be in while using the app. There would be a doing mode, which is when you're actually like doing the tasks, trying to accomplish something. Um, what what does that interface look like? How does it alert you of that information? What kind of input can you put in while you're doing a task? So these are the kind of beginning screens that I started with. I'm starting with with a mobile first design, just to kind of think through and prioritize. Okay, what is the most important thing on screen? What do I need to be interfacing with to make it as minimal and as easy to use? I want this to be quick. I want this kind of thing to be okay. I'm going to pop in. I'm going to click a couple buttons. I'm going to go back to what I was doing. I want to avoid drop down menus, anything that have like multiple clicks involved. I want to just keep it as flat as I can. So with these dashboards, with these screens, you can see I've got a couple different ideas that I'm kind of working through. The first one, I have like multiple tasks. You'll see in this first window how they're different sizes. I wanted this to represent the duration of the task. So if it's a small task, it's pretty small, and then as it gets bigger, as it's going to be a longer, more drawn out thing, it gets bigger, giving you a physical sense of time, like an analog watch. You've got the amount of space that it moves represents the time. I find with digital clocks that kind of becomes abstracted away, and I find it useful to have the physical size of a task. This would also relate to a feature down the road that I want to get into, which is being able to do time blocking. So you would have your kind of like weekly calendar set with hours, and then you'd be able to kind of like drag and drop your different tasks to kind of prepare for your week and move things around. Um, so I wanted to kind of carry that through from this to-do list, also with that calendar view. Um, so start with having a bunch of different tasks here, and then I started to think that that could be kind of overwhelming. If you're in the middle of a task, then there's what's the fine line between being kind of mentally prepared for what's going to come after versus what maybe is too much information that you're going to get overwhelmed. If I look at this list and I start to see like, oh, okay, I've got to like comb LinkedIn for jobs, but then I'm also thinking like start laying out React project down here that I'm supposed to do in the afternoon. My brain is going to be torn between like the task I'm doing at hand and then like, oh, kind of like in the background preparing for that other one, and that's not going to be super useful because it's a very unrelated task. So I'm trying to figure out what the fine line is. I imagine um, the amount of tasks presented would be a setting that you'd be able to adjust. Some people might find it useful to be able to see their whole day in a to-do list. Some people might find that overwhelming and want to just have one task, or maybe a second task. Maybe it's contextual, where as the task you're doing is coming to completion, maybe 5-10 minutes beforehand, the next task will kind of pop up there and let you like, hey, this is what you're going to be doing next. Just a heads up to kind of transition and kind of ease the context switching tax that kind of takes over. You can also see here I've got the different kind of buttons that I'm thinking about implementing, whether it's a start button to kind of start the timer of when you're working on a task, when are you telling the app like, yes, this is what I'm doing, versus if I got distracted or if I'm still working on the other thing. Um, a done button for when I'm done with the task and want to move on to the next one. I started this little X down here was intended to be a skip. If like, okay, something pops up, I don't feel like doing that right now. I'm not in the right headspace or whatever. I'm not ready for it. And then another where like, yeah, the view task list is again, you could then see everything and maybe pick from that what do you want to work on, and then go into a dashboard of. I haven't quite figured out what the dashboard is going to look like yet, at what level that is. Um, but I figured it's going to exist. There's going to be a dashboard somewhere. And that would be more of some of the other modes that I mentioned. So right off the bat, I was thinking a doing mode. And then another one would be planning, when either you're planning out your day at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, or if you're doing like a weekly kind of like review. And reviewing would be another um, mode where that's more of a look back on what you've done, and you can kind of that's where it was like the aspects of life and kind of like checking in on the health of the different projects and seeing like, oh, I seem to be skipping this one thing. I really should do that. Or maybe if I'm skipping it so much, maybe I don't need to do that as much, and try to figure out, oh, can I delegate that, or something like some other method of accomplishing the task without having to do it. All right, so let's see. We're still working on some designs here. Let's see. Yeah, thinking through, putting some notes down. Okay, so this is when I start to go into like a goals mode, the idea of this kind of like planning where you can kind of see at a higher level what you're trying to accomplish. Then I started to break down here under the different aspects and do that as maybe the method of organizing everything. Um, let's see. Yeah, checking in with ChatGPT to kind of like get an idea of, I don't know, just overall goal setting and planning. Just try to like get in that mind space. Um, so yeah, back to goals, being able to see everything, different colors to maybe associate with the different aspects of life, just to kind of like get an idea of color coding things to keep them related, so you understand like what the context is. Um, So then I jump into here. What am I doing here? My job search strategy. I think I was just more thinking about what do I need to accomplish right now in my own life, and then how do I want to present that information and record it and present it back to me. Um, the different ideas of if you click into a goal, how are the projects presented and the tasks that are part of that. I should probably pause on these things when I'm clicking through them. So let's just back up a second here. So you can see I've got the planning mode, the doing mode, review mode, and then as I continue and like I'm brainstorming things, I've got the actual like adding a task or creating a task is like another mode that when you're adding stuff in, which I guess would be a part of the planning process. But this is when I get into the actual creation of the task. So this is the real interface, the form that creates the task, then will populate everything else surrounding it. So I definitely put everything on the wall, put through every input that I can think of, every different aspect, all the different options, throw everything on there, and then trim away and try to figure out what's the most important thing, how should be presented to people, how should I ask for that information, what's required, what's optional, that kind of stuff. So, and then getting into here. Let's see. So starting off, we've got the type of tasks. So I'm thinking of breaking this down into goals, projects, and to-dos. To-dos are the actual like thing you're supposed to do. Project is slightly larger, and then a goal is what you're actually trying to accomplish in the long term. So right now I have a title, a description, a notes, deadline, soft or hard. This is an idea. If a deadline is like, I need this done by Tuesday next week, no questions asked, that's what it has to be. It's a hard deadline. Or soft is like, well, I'd really like this to be accomplished by the end of the month. I haven't figured out exactly how that's going to apply to the actual calculations of determining the priority score for each of these tasks. But it was an interesting idea that I found with my own to-do list, where certain things are hard time, and then other ones are like, I'd like to get it done by. Anyway, complexity. This is the idea where certain tasks are more complex than others. I know in software, I think a lot of people do the t-shirt sizing, which is what I have here. And then I also go into different other aspects of like just high, medium, low. Just to affect the scoring and get an idea of it. Duration, how long do I think the task is going to take, repeating, the location, like where do I need to be to accomplish this task. When I had initially come up with this app, I had a studio space at the time with a workshop in it, so there were certain things that I needed to be in there running my CNC machine. Then I can only do that in the studio. So my dream was that the app would know where I am and recommend tasks based on that. So this idea, when you're like starting your day and kind of like initiating your day in the app, you tell it like, okay, I'm going to spend the mornings at home, and then in the afternoon, I'm going to go to the studio. So it would then kind of like present you with tasks based on that information. And then out would be if you're out running errands or something, I need to get the oil changed in the car, get new tires, I need to go food shopping, walk the dog, drop off something at the UPS store or something like that. And then preferred time of day. Again, more ways of telling the app when you want to try to accomplish something. So like for exercising, I like exercise in the afternoon when my brain feels fried. I find it re-energizes me, and I can start working again afterwards. So like after lunch or like an hour or two after that. So that's like a preferred time of day. There's certain things that I want to do in the morning. You get the idea. Another metric that I started thinking of is why you're trying to accomplish a task. Another one of those things that I don't know how much it would affect the actual scoring, but from a kind of review, looking back on a higher level view, understand like what tasks are you prioritizing, which ones are you skipping, just to kind of stay on top of yeah, all of your life, not just one particularly focused thing. And also like just to keep an eye on like, okay, how much am I spending too much time on educational things? Am I spending too much time watching tutorials on YouTube rather than actually building something? Am I not doing enough fun stuff? Honestly, like, am I just grinding so hard that I'm not getting re-energized in something that I'm excited about? So that was just like a higher level, another idea of getting into why you're doing it. That also might be a part of like a return on investment. So if you're investing time into doing this task, what are you expecting to get out of it? Aside from just like accomplishing the goals and the projects, but like why are you doing that thing? Just to kind of like kick into gear your brain as to understand, yeah, why is this important? Just to kind of be mindful about. Let's see what else. So going through the life aspects I've talked about already. Travel time was another aspect of just something to consider when it's recommending things or planning out your day. If it's going to take me half an hour to get to my studio, then it kind of like blocks that in with the tasks. And another one of those things that I'm gonna definitely probably, I don't know, I am going to cut out for now, and maybe we'll reintroduce later, depending on once I start using this app and determine, do I want that? Do I need it? Is it nice to have? How easy is it to implement? Is it useful or not? Another thing that I popped in here is a dread score. This was this idea of, yeah, how likely am I dreading this task? How likely am I to procrastinate? I eventually changed this to excitement score to have a more positive, the opposite of dread being excitement. Yeah, to give it a more positive encouragement. But yeah, another metric of just like, if I have a high dread score or a low excitement, then that means that like this should probably be prioritized higher because that means I'm more likely to kind of like, yeah, procrastinate, get distracted, and I'm gonna need more time to accomplish it. That's the thinking there. Yeah, random notes kind of like popped off to the side here. That's just how I do my notes. So this is one of my, what is the actual interface when creating a task? Trying to making it as shallow as possible. No multiple clicks. Just trying to do everything with a button on screen that you select, and then when you submit it. Since I'm doing this view initially here on mobile, I'm kind of imagining a mobile app, but I'm actually going to build it as a web app. But yeah. So a lot of this stuff, I'm not going to get into that. I was thinking a lot of it is probably going to be like radio buttons, but like they're kind of ugly and old school looking. So I want like a button group or to use buttons for most things. So also that it is more mobile friendly and not have to like click it and then do a select menu and scroll through it. I don't want to do that. Whatever the easiest, just like boop boop boop, done. Yeah, minimum amount of clicks to accomplish this. So now I'm thinking about, so setting the actual, like, I stopped using deadline because I thought that was very negative. So target date, I started to kind of think about. So thinking about what those different options are depending on what type of view it is. This is the soft and the hard deadlines is another thing that I'm gonna put on hold and try to determine whether it's useful or not. But just getting an idea. Again, I felt that Google does a pretty good job with their calendars on setting deadlines and dates and reoccurring time frames and whatnot. So grabbing some screen grabs of that just as a reference. And then here, what I started to do, I added a publish button down at the bottom, so that like if you're in a rush and you just want to like get something built as fast as you can, just to like track it, get it down. So you can kind of like short circuit the process, put in the basic information, hit publish. It'll then generate the thing and organize it. And then you could also then go into, if you wanted to add more info, that would be, you click that, go to another screen, and then that would have more information. The like kind of like tier 2 information when building out a task. Let's see. So yeah, trying to figure out like what some other views would be, what some other priority stuff is. So this was when I started to think about like, okay, how is this app actually going to work? How would, when you're creating a task, how would it know what like the parent task or project was? So that was this idea of having a little like scroll window, basically a little select menu of how to connect it to something else. I don't really like this idea. Like I said, I was trying to make it shallow, but when you're generating this stuff, you need a way to connect it. And then setting the goal project to do, kind of setting the priority level that it is. Not priority level, but the task type that it is. Okay, this is where, yes, tier 1, most important. Tier 2 is like that secondary information. That's like nice to have and is less about the actual task and more about like when you're to be accomplishing it and other information. Let's see. Yeah, so like that second more info is more drop downs, a little more clicking around to put in more information. Let's see. So here, just like bouncing back, now that I kind of like thought more about what the task generation is like, coming back to this doing mode and revisiting it with this kind of new, now that I'm more in the mode of thinking. I changed I got the you got this instead of to-do item. Again, just trying to be positive and encouraging. These little tick marks here to kind of delineate how long the task is. So like one segment's 15 minutes, and the more segments you've got, the longer, the larger the task is. Here you got the skip button. So what else? This is getting this idea of having the next task there, so you can kind of be aware of it as you're finishing. Popping around. So just generating more screens, thinking about how the user would use it, what sort of like more in-depth. Just immersing myself in the whole thing. So then I kind of got like the creation task, how it would be presented, this kind of like rough idea of how it would work. And then this, now that I kind of I'm in the mindset of how the app will work, I kind of have I'm in it. So now that I've gotten kind of like the most interface stuff done, or at least thought about and brainstormed. Now thinking about what is the process that the user is going to go through, how are they going to set it up, um, when they first sign up for the app, what is their flow going to be from start to finish to actually then getting to the end and doing the actual tasks. So I guess I started with a sort of like end in mind mentality here. I started with how the users at the end is going to be using it, thought about that a bunch, and now I'm going back to the beginning. Okay, how do I get the user to that point now? Um, so I got the sign in, maybe setting up the hierarchy, what you're trying to focus on the most in your different hierarchy aspects of life, creating goals, having a list of recommendations maybe of like just to get people thinking about their own lives and what they're trying to accomplish, just so that you're not staring at a blank screen and trying to figure out what you want to do with your life. And then, yeah, add projects, add to-dos. I put up here how to scale priorities. So while I'm doing this, I'm also thinking about like, how are the actual calculations going to be done now that I'm taking in this information from the user? How is that going to, what's happening behind the scenes to make those calculations, to create that priority score, to then feed it back and display it to the user? So when I kind of was looking at thinking of hierarchy and this priority score that I'm thinking of is low, medium, high, or the small, medium, large. I guess small, medium, large is more like a task, but like for goals and projects would be like a high, medium, and low. The priority of it. And then this idea of point buy is kind of like D&D when you're creating a character and you have a point buy system. You have a certain number of points that you can put into your attributes. So this idea would be you can, for your goals that you have, there would be a limited number of high priority goals, a limited number of medium priority goals, and then the rest would be low priority. This way it prevents that mentality of everything is of high importance, that if everything is super important, then nothing is super important. So this would force the user to be like, okay, what is the most important thing I'm working on? So I was thinking in here there would be, you'd only be allowed to have one high priority goal, two medium priority goals, and then everything else is low, just because that would then affect the scoring and make sure that you're focused on what you want to be focused on. So yeah, that's that there. Start doing, review doing, make more tasks. Yeah, just keep getting in the flow of it. I started. I don't know if you saw the MVP. I'm starting to think now, what is the minimum viable product that I can make? What is the absolute most basic version of this that I can start with, where I can start making? So something that can create the tasks, calculate the hierarchy, display the to-do list with that hierarchy in order, and then save that to local storage, get all that worked out locally, and then hook it up to Firebase so that I can actually store this information. I'm thinking Firebase, one, because I want to learn it, and I think it should work pretty well. And then I'm also thinking as another feature down the road is this idea of accountability buddies. This idea that you can have a friend or accountability buddy to also look at your goals and your projects and everything and can kind of hold you accountable to them. You can kind of check in with these things, and me and my buddy did this, especially during the pandemic in the past couple of years. We would have these phone calls to just kind of like check in. What are we trying to accomplish? How are we feeling? What have we gotten done? And to like encourage and help guide each other. So with Firebase, you'd be able to do like real-time updates if you're going to be either having like a chat aspect, or if you can kind of like all work on one workspace and move things around. I'm not exactly sure, but it's something that I want to explore and maybe get into. So I figure starting with Firebase would be the best way to kind of like set myself up for those features in the future. If this also becomes a sort of like work environment tool, then you have teams of collaborators working on something. Then yeah, Firebase and immediate updates would be important to have for that. Um, so now I'm thinking about that, getting into what is the actual score, what are the weights of each of these metrics that I'm pulling in? How is it going to take those calculations and then generate that to-do list? Up until this point, it's all just been very like vibes. I want this to do. Uh, yeah, it'll just work. It'll just work. So now I'm getting into how is it going to work? So lower score, less important. Taking all those different tiers of information, trying to think about how it's going to be laid out. Um, yeah, again, you've got like the certain metrics are important for the I guess the urgency of it and the actual like doing the task, and then there's the when, how is it displayed? So like duration would be how big of a block is it? Deadline would be yeah, the deadline. So it's less related to the actual like task itself. Complexity, actually that's a duplicate there, but so getting into this idea, so I started with okay, low, medium, high. Low is 1 point, medium's 2 points, high is 3 points. Um, this is one of those things that I'm just doing this as a starting point, and once I start using the app, and is it presenting the information that I want it to? How can I dial things? How can I tune things? But this is just my first starting point for trying to figure out these calculations. Uh, so then this is here, yeah. So like hard deadline, depending on how many days away, that then changes the how the score related to it. So as it gets closer, it becomes more and more high priority. Um, so let's see, yeah, tier 2 information. The why is a very personal metric that yeah, I'm probably I'm definitely gonna remove it for the beginning stages of this project and maybe reintroduce it later. That's a very much where the user is gonna have to like kind of. I'll probably have some defaults in there, but the user is probably gonna need to maybe add their own reasons why they're trying to accomplish something. At least give them the options to change them around in like a settings menu somewhere. Um, so location, yeah. So, oh. So from here, starting to get into, now that I'm like thinking more about how the scoring is going to work, how the interface is going to work, going back to that doing mode and thinking, um, what are the interfaces when you're in the zone, when you're working on stuff, if you want to, if a task comes up and you can say not now, and just like either it'll kind of put it on pause. And I like to keep a record of that, how many times you skip something, how much times you delay things. Can you tell the app like I need more time with the task I'm on? Not today, meaning like whatever it is. Let's say when I set up my to-dos in the morning, and I told it I was going to go to the studio in the afternoon, and then something came up and I ended up not going to the studio, and so studio tasks started showing up. I could say like not today, or or having a mix it up button. This idea where like I'm not feeling any of these tasks. Give me something that's completely unrelated. Let me try to just like do something else for a little bit. I don't know, just something like might add some life into it, and not be so stale. All right. So this is where I start laying out the yeah, phase one, phase two of actually building out this MVP. What are the different uh, yeah, features that I'm going to build out first? What's going to come later? Um, so that's what we're going to get into after this. So this kind of sums up my first dive into actually thinking about designing it. Um, After this, from here, I actually go into JavaScript and start messing around with how the calculations will work, figuring out the structure of the kind of like task objects and how they're going to be nested and how does that relationship work. Um, so that will come later. So yeah, this is how I started designing this app, and as I build it, we'll see how relevant this is. Um, yeah, thanks for watching, and check in soon. Thanks.